Hello and welcome to the Lead Different podcast premiere for Greg Wasserman's episode today. Hey, Greg, first of all, for those of you that don't know, my good friend Greg here is in Southern California in Hollywood. And I see that you're not in your regular spot, Greg. Where are you today?
Yeah, I evacuated. I'm at my girlfriend's place.
And where are you in California now? Santa Monica?
Nah, I'm in Marina Del Rey.
Marina Del Rey. You don't hang out in really ugly places. Good for you. If I'm going to evacuate, Marina Del Rey is a pretty good place to evacuate to. And let's thank your girlfriend for providing you a safe place to call in.
Right. Yeah, this has been an interesting week.
Man, especially for those of us that do a lot of work on social media and we're online doing podcasts and things like that. Not being at your studio, not having access to your regular high-speed internet, that's got to be hard.
Yeah. I thought about it. I'm like, I'm just throwing in a shirt and hoodie today. I'm like, it's been one hell of a week. So we're just going to, as I told someone yesterday, right? Like COVID taught us if COVID didn't teach us anything, it taught us like you show up as your authentic self and you can fake
Yes.
it as much as you want, but we all know faking it. People see through that, and
Yep.
especially now. So I'm like, you know what? This is who I am today. This is who's surviving today, and I'm just happy to be here, and hope everyone has a great time enjoying what we had to say.
Yeah, you know what? We had a great interview. I'm so glad that you and I have connected, and you're introducing me to people. I'm getting to meet some of your network. I actually was just thinking about. I was talking to Larry Levine. He's the author of a book called Selling from the Heart. So he's one of the great thought leaders in how to sell authentically, which I think you'll make a great connection for you. And he's in your neck of the woods. He was having to drive somewhere to take some calls. He was looking for a Starbucks with Wi-Fi this week, and I'm sure he won't mind me telling this. And we're praying he's okay because on his way home from Starbucks, he had to stop at a stoplight that because the electricity was out, wasn't working. So it became a four-way, right? So he stops. Well, the SUV behind him did not realize that he was going to stop
Hmm.
and barreled into him, totaled his car. So, Larry's got some neck pain right now. And he said he's glad he didn't see it coming because he might have braced himself and injured worse. So he was relaxed. But still, those kind of things, he's not directly impacted by the fire, but the power outages are impacting people. You're smart. You left before there was as soon as there was a fire in your neighborhood, you said, and then you left.
Yeah, I went up to the roof. I'm like, this is on fire. All right, not my roof, but the area around. And I'm like, I looked at all of us, and all our neighbors are up there. We're like, are you staying? Are you staying? And I'm like, I'm out of here. One guy's like, I don't think so. And like I said, I always thought my area would always be safe. And like when you
Right.
watch that, you're like, the way the fire and the wind has been blowing, and it's been blowing so bad. I'm like, I'm not risking this. And then it just took 2 hours to drive and get out of there. So uh, if you've got, I think what the stats I said was like 200,000 people have been displaced. So imagine
Right.
a city of millions of people where traffic is already a nightmare, all
Right.
trying to leave their places at the same time. That's why you're seeing, and now I recognize why there were just cars that were just abandoned in the Palisades because nothing was moving. People were freaking out, and they're just like, I'd rather go on foot. And now you got cars just stuck there. Yeah.
Well, and they burned, and I saw that they had to actually plow cars out of
Yeah.
the way so they could get through there. You know what I mean? This is so great. And guys, for those of you listening live here for the premiere, obviously this is not how we normally kick off a show, but this is not a normal situation. One of the reasons I have Greg on the show is when we talk about leading different. We're talking about doing things differently than everybody else. And one of the things I truly love about Greg is his vision centers on the thought that life is about time and relationships because you never know where one conversation today is going to lead. And that's kind of how we met, right? We have a conversation. I've introduced you to a couple of people who have gotten great value out of meeting you, and I know that this will continue. But on our podcast, we're going to dig into that a little bit, and I want to just say thank you for making the time to be on. As a matter of fact, I'll give Larry Levine a hard time. We had a scheduled call and he missed it. And so I just called, we were scheduled on a Zoom call, but I called him in the afternoon. And I said, "Hey, what's going on with you?" And then I felt like an insensitive jerk because he tells me what happened to him, and he's like, "Dan, don't forget I'm in Southern California, so my hat." My headspace is different with regards to your situation. If you hadn't shown up today, I totally would have understood. And so we'll just keep you in our thoughts and prayers, Greg. Keep entire all of Southern California in our thoughts and prayers, and hope that you guys recover from this as soon as possible. But boy, there's some devastation out there. Let's have a positive note for those of you that are live. If you want to make comments or send us your questions while we're playing the episode, we're going to go ahead and put it on now. And Greg, you and I will fade into the background. Which platform are you going to be on live? I'm going to follow the LinkedIn. I follow all three of them.
Okay.
Which one do you normally get on most?
LinkedIn. So I will go to that link right now and go watch it on LinkedIn.
Watch it on LinkedIn, and we'll keep an eye on your comments here, and we'll put them on the screen. And if not, we'll highlight the brilliance of Greg Wasserman as the interview goes on. So, guys, have a great rest of your day. Don't forget to share the episode with your friends. Don't forget to comment and like all the stuff that every podcaster tells you to do. Let's make sure we do it so we can get the Lead Different podcast and Greg's message to as many people as possible. Without further ado, let's get started. And here's episode 42, Greg Wasserman on the Lead Different podcast.
The podcast that redefines leadership and challenges the status quo. Hosted by Daniel Dominguez, founder and CEO of Why Not Leadership. This show is your compass to becoming a better leader through the power of self-awareness. Good leaders foster teams that are engaged, empowered, and energized. Join us on this transformative journey as we equip you with the tools and insights to lead different. Get ready to challenge the ordinary and embrace self-aware leadership. This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different, because great leaders change the world.
Hey, hello, everyone, and welcome to the Lead Different podcast. I'm excited to introduce you today to Greg Wasserman. He is a dynamic professional driven by curiosity, trust, love, fitness, and adventure. His superpower lies in building meaningful connections to help others grow and succeed, whether in personal relationships or professional endeavors. He is a USC graduate. He began his career exceeding sales quotas at Yahoo and later thrived in startups, creating partnerships and innovative go-to-market strategies. He excels in creating partnerships, thriving communities, and non-endemic revenue streams. He consistently proves himself a natural revenue generator. He's passionate about the power of community. He advocates for leveraging partnerships to open new markets, enhance sales, and build sustainable success. His entrepreneurial spirit and passion for community building enable him to create authentic connections that drive success for companies and individuals alike. If you believe in the power of partnerships and community to achieve remarkable results, Greg is the person to know. So without further ado, let me introduce you guys to Greg. How are you doing today, Greg?
I'm great. You know, it's always as no matter how many times I do this, it's always funny hearing your intro and going like, oh wow, it sounds so much better when someone else reads it.
Isn't it funny? You know, we go through life doing things, and it's not till you start listing the things you've done, you realize, hey man, I've done some pretty cool things, right?
This is so true. So true. But always a great pleasure to talk with you and talk with everyone here.
Well, you know, I'm excited to introduce you to my audience. You know, the Why Not Leadership audience, the Lead Different podcast. We're not a billion subscriber podcast, but we have some very loyal followers, and they love hearing about success stories and people like yourself who believe in connecting. You know, one of the mottos that we have at Why Not Leadership is if you do what everyone else does, you're going to get the results everyone else gets. Well, Greg doesn't do what everybody else does. You know, your motto is your life is about relationships and connections. That's going to resonate with somebody like Dan Dominguez, who, you know, when we were talking earlier about your YOS, my why is to contribute, make a difference in the lives of others. Your why is to find a better way and share it with others. You're a generous person just by nature. So I couldn't help but reconnect with you when I saw your post, and it was on LinkedIn. Gosh, it hasn't been that long ago, but you talked about, it was about 4 weeks ago, you talked about how most podcasters won't define their why and why it's so hard for them to do it. And I said, I got to comment on that. So I commented, we got back into a conversation, which led to me inviting you to the podcast. So why is it so hard for podcasters to define their why, Greg?
I mean, I think it probably goes back to a lot of them struggling with what is my why for my business, and understanding where do I want to take this business. But the key to it is like most people are like, oh, I'm good at conversations, or I know the power of repurposing, so I'm gonna create these conversations over a podcast, audio or video only, right? And use that to fuel whatever my business is. But like the core of it, that's not your sphere of influence. It's not your zone of genius, I should say. So knowing what to do to create a podcast so that it has a good flow, that it has a good strategy, that you're actually thinking about what are the clips that I would be getting from this conversation. Most people are like, I'm just going to go in there, wing it. We'll see where the conversation takes us. And hopefully you'll get some good quotes, you'll get some good pieces of content. But like, most don't realize that there should be a structure, that you should be thinking this through, that there should be a strategy that plays into your larger overall business. And that breaks my heart a lot, because you then see a lot of podcasters also still struggling with, how do I make money? And they're thinking about, how do I make money by ads or sponsorships as the main reasons and the main drivers of it. But there's so many more ways you can make money. And so I always like to say, if you treat your podcast like a podcast, you're probably going to struggle. If you treat it like a brand and part of your business, you will find success that will drive the goals and the objectives you're looking for.
Man, I just love it when I have guests who are so knowledgeable about this stuff. Here's what, as you were talking, I was thinking, okay, Greg, where do you rate us? Because we're a new podcast. We're just getting started. And I'm wanting to do all those things that you talked about. And I've got a team. So I'm blessed that I have a team. You know, you met Sunil in the pre-show. He records, he edits, he puts the podcast out to everybody. And then I've got an amazing team, marketing team. And they just started mining my podcast. They said, Dan, there's so many great jewels in there that we want to use. Like you said, what clips is that conversation going to create that actually tie to the service that I provide, so that I can put it out so that people are attracted to what we do? Don't treat it like a podcast. It's your brand. And then that reminded me of the conversation. By the way, you got to join us Friday if you're available, Greg. I'm interviewing Juliet Wright, and she talks about the importance of knowing your brand, your marketing, and then your advertising. And she has a great analogy that she talks about. Your brand shows up before you do. Think of it as the logs on the fire. She says your marketing is the fire itself. You build the fire. That's your marketing. And think of advertising as the accelerant, the fuel. She says a lot of people spend a lot of money on advertising, but they're pouring it on concrete. They don't have the wood and there's no fire there. And so that's kind of what you reminded me. There's so many components to it. What's the biggest mistake you see podcasters make?
I mean, just based on what you were just describing, the first thought comes to my mind is, most people want to spend the money to grow, right? So I used to run 3 podcast listening platforms, and doing so, I'd work with podcasters, and they would be like, great, how much money can I spend to grow my show? And I'm like, hold on, let's actually take a look at, if we start driving more traffic to your show here, what is your framework? Are your titles optimized? Is your description optimized? Is your website, if you're ultimately driving people back to whatever your call to action is that optimized? No. So it's okay for you to spend $10,000 to just drive more traffic to something that's not optimized. I'd rather spend the time and energy and make sure it doesn't have to be perfect. I'm never going to tell you perfect, but at least let's do the bare minimum to make things a little better, so that you are making that investment that works better for you. And I have to imagine you see this a lot in businesses as well. Businesses are going to not spend the time to set themselves up for strategic success, because it's just a lot of work. So it's easier to just struggle along and go through these motions, even though if you took a step back, put more time and energy up front, you'll be working less as hard later on. And that, I think, is a key piece. So your question, that is the first thing that comes to mind. I don't think that's the direct answer, but that is exactly what came to my mind with your setup.
No, but that's a serious mistake, right? You can't, if you spend money on advertising and your website's not optimized, people are going to spend what I think I hear between 2 seconds and 9 seconds on your homepage, and if you don't catch their attention, they're gone. Do you have an optimized web page? And and I just realized I made a podcasting mistake. I just timed our recording, so we're recording this in November. We're not premiering this podcast till January, so everybody's gonna be like, Friday Juliet was on in November, but oh well, we made that mistake. Go back and listen to Juliet's interview. It was amazing. And yeah, one of the things I actually heard her, she was at a workshop at a conference that I was at, and she spoke live. And one of the things she did, and I bet you can use this, Greg. She started her presentation and she said, I talked to the organizers of this event, and I got some websites addresses from them. And so rather than tell you what I do, we're going to do a live website audit. And so everybody in the room is like, oh, and she said, I'm just kidding. And she flashed a screen of a broken website. She goes, I'm just kidding. But here's what I want you to think about. If when I said that you were excited and hoping I would bring up your website, then you're doing it right. But if you were like, oh gosh, please don't pull up my website, please don't embarrass me in front of everyone, then you've got some work to do, and you're pouring accelerant on the concrete instead, because you don't have the brand and you don't have the marketing. How much of that do you do, Greg? Because hey man, I'm impressed with anybody whose lead line on LinkedIn says revenue generator, right? That's going to get attention from people. So you're going to help people generate revenue. But how much of what you do with podcasters and with people that you work with is on making sure that the back end is right, building a good brand, having strong marketing, and then getting to the part where you're going to spend money?
I mean, for me, my biggest thing is always like, how can I make you more money? Like, that's what I love to do, right? Because making you more money, in a sense, ends up making me and my companies more money, right? So the core of it is like, how do I help you make more money? Like, that's literally what I want to do. And so revenue generation is not only for the company, but ultimately for you. So whether it's the 15 years I was in media, it's like, great, how can what I'm offering you help you hit your KPIs, which ultimately leads towards, more sales, more leads, whatever the case may be. So I'm always thinking about that. And I think we were talking about what my why is. It's like, I'm the person that wants to ask the questions and discern, like, is this the best way to do something? You may come back to me and say yes, but I love the example you were just giving, Dan, of like, if you are nervous that I'm going to look at your website and this website needs some work, well then let's figure that piece out. But too often you don't take the energy. You could be like, you know what? I know my website needs work, but I got all these other things I'm working on, so I don't have the time or energy to do that. It's like, you should always be optimizing those components, because take the last company I was with, product-led growth company, you're driving people into a funnel. Well, if they are churning, then we're not getting revenue. They're having a bad experience. They're not even getting the ability to see what the experience is. So everyone's losing, because ultimately your brand, your business is your baby, it's your passion, it's your product. If you believe that this service should be in the hands of the right people and helping them, and you aren't making that easy for them to understand why I should love what you are offering, then you're doing a disservice to yourself, and you're hurting other people for what they should be able to come to you for.
Man, you hit that right on the head, because absolutely, if you believe in your product, and you do, because you started a company and you're providing a service, or you're providing a product, if you believe that it can make the world better, it can make other people better, but people aren't able to sign up because they just don't see it. All that genius that you have inside your head, all that experience, all that magic that you could bring to someone else is lost on them. And you're not going to be able to make that difference that you want to make unless you get all that stuff set up correctly. So we met, I think when we first met, you were at Cast Magic, right?
Correct.
Which is a great tool for helping podcasters. And then you were at Podcast Her. And
Correct.
then at every place that I've seen you, Greg, you're just a difference maker. You're a relationship builder and you're a connector. What would you say is the unique ability that you bring to everyone you work with? Because I see it, but I would love to hear it in your words.
My brain, and I don't know, we talk about this from a YOS standpoint, but like
Yeah.
my brain thinks about who can I talk to and how do I help them? Who could I connect the dots with? So what I'm bringing, especially from a relationships, is a mindset of what does relationship growth look for? And then a revenue side of things, like how's this going to drive revenue, which is why I love partnerships. It's like, all right, the more people you talk to, the more conversations you have means the more you're able to understand the consumer, understand the problem, understand how your service could help them, but also it's not just your service, it is how you can overall help them. If you're not just thinking about my product, but overall everything that provides value for this, it goes back to brand building for yourself. Know, like, and trust. I've got to let people know I'm not here to just solve this one problem for you. I'm here to solve all these additional problems. That's something I've always done in my career. Back in advertising, it's like my solution may not be the right solution for you, but I guarantee you I'm talking to 20, 30 other sales reps that are offering a solution that may be valuable for you. So talk to me. If our vibes work, if you like it, I'm going to understand what you're looking for. And my whole demeanor is I'm going to go connect you with someone that may be able to help you. So every conversation I'm looking at is how do I help you make money? How do I help you answer the questions that you probably have? And if I can't do it, I'm the guy that knows someone that can. So I bring that to any company because that's going to help you from a retention, from a growth, a revenue, partnerships, and all those other components. But ultimately, as I did with Cast Magic, it builds a brand. You ultimately get people to know, like, and trust your brand more because you're not just a product. You're just not a solution. You are you're an ecosystem in that regard.
So let's talk about that real quick because you remind me of another interview. Adam Packard. I had Adam Packard on, and he's a marketing genius. And he said, one of the things he says, and I bet you agree with it. He says, he who has the most conversations wins. Conversations lead to relationships and relationships lead to clients. And I love that servant attitude that you have, whether it's, if I can't help you, don't worry, I will find somebody who can. If I can't help you, I'm connected to someone who can. And I've already connected you with a couple of people that I know, love, and trust. And not even like these are people I know, love, and trust. And I felt that from you from the beginning. I knew that there's something that you bring that they can use. And I said, I'm going to introduce them and then we'll let the conversation take you where it takes you. But that's another reason, a lot of people don't realize in order to get recommended, you've got to be known, liked, and trusted. Right. And I'm not going to recommend you to someone if I think you're going to go in there and say, hey, how you doing? How much money can I get from you? I love the question you ask. How can I help you make more money? And again, probably that comes from the contribute side in me. And let's do this real quick. If you don't mind, Greg, let's tell people your why operating system. Because as I said, a lot of my fellow why coaches are going to be listening and they always want to know, okay, what's Greg's full profile? So here's what we know about Greg. And we did a quick and dirty YOS discovery with him. His why is to find a better way and share it with others. So in everything Greg does, he's always looking to innovate, take things that exist and make them better. Bring them your ugly website. Bring them your ugly community building efforts. Bring them stuff that isn't 100% there. He's going to help you make it better. He's driven by that. His how is clarify. And I really see this in you, Greg. You're a person who likes to make things clear and understandable by asking questions. And you even said it. Why don't you tell us about your experience at school? And let's remember, we're on the how of clarify. But you said, in school, you were that kid that did what?
I'm the smart ass in the back of the class who didn't understand what was being said. I look around, I'm like, you just look at everyone's face. I'm like, I know I'm not the only person who's thinking this. And it's like, that doesn't make sense. And then of course, the teacher's like, oh man, smart ass. But it's like, no, they want it to be clear. So I'm always the person. If it's not clear, I love the KISS method, right? Keep it simple, stupid, right? But like at the end of the day, how do you help understand this? I may not be the best at breaking it down so that a third grader, eighth grader, whatever can understand it in that regards. But that's who I'm going to ask the question for. It's like, make it simple. How do you break this down? I know I'm a long-winded person. I like to talk, so I may not be the person for that, but I will always be the one that's asking the questions like, why are we doing this? How could we make this better? Is this the right way? And I guess as I was taught as a kid, always ask why, which is why I like the YOS, right? So like, ask the questions.
Asking questions is so critical. I've always said I've led sales teams at really high levels in big companies, and I've managed sales organizations. And my best salesmen and salespeople have always been not the people that had all the answers. It's the people that ask the great questions. And I see that in you, Greg. You ask great questions. You ask what I used to call second and third level questions. Everybody can ask the simple question, tell me about yourself. Oh, tell me more about that. And why is that important? Those are the kind of questions that somebody like Greg Wasserman asks. The other gift that I think you have, Greg, is as a clarifier is you'll ask the questions that some of us forget to ask. And so, and even when we were talking in the intro about how you help podcasters, someone like me, I'm more of a ready, fire, aim kind of person. So I'll say, hey, I'm going to start a podcast, and I'll sign up for the platform. I'll get StreamYard. I'll get on LinkedIn and get on and then I'll ask, oh, maybe I should have an editor. That would be a good thing, right? Greg is going to help you because of your gift of being a clarifier. You're going to ask those questions that people like myself forget to even ask, right? It's not even the answer that's important. It's asking the right question. Would you agree?
Yeah. I mean, what is the reason, right? So you could look at how many podcasters ultimately go down the path of, as you said, I'm just going to hit record. I'm going to have these conversations, but what is the purpose of this? Are you being strategic about the guests you're bringing on? Because those are the guests that you want to educate their knowledge to your audience, or are you bringing guests on because those are the people you ultimately want to become clients? Like, what is the strategy with which just the guest, and then what is the conversations you're looking to have? What are the kind of knowledge that you are looking to get out there so that your audience and your community that you're building knows, likes, and trusts you for that information that you're bringing? Like, a lot of people aren't doing that. They're not even thinking in that strategic of a way, which I look at them like, that's kind of like just table stakes, but I think I've been in this game too long where I think about that. And then clarifying questions like, how do I make you more money? The biggest thing that most podcasters do is like, all right, I need to get sponsors. I need to grow my show so I can get sponsors. It's like, no, there's so many other ways you can make money. Let's start thinking about those, and the sponsors will come, or the other components will be able to be monetized. But yeah, you've got to start thinking about, why am I doing this, and getting that deeper understanding.
I love that you keep using why. So thank you very much for doing that. He's right on cue, right? So Why Not Leadership began. Our company began as we spent 5 years at the Why Institute helping people discover their why. And the more I did that, the more I started realizing the key is in the why, but I started thinking about why not. And really, why not? What is a why not leader to me is somebody who's willing to say why not. People that will take a chance and do something that not everybody else will do, and is willing to lead different. And you're a different kind of leader, Greg. I've seen you succeed at different places, and I'm hoping to bring your genius to some of my friends and some of our listeners here today. I'm looking forward to having you talk to some other people that are going to connect with you after this podcast, some of our coaching clients and some of the people that we work with. But let's finish your YOS. So we talked about better way. We talked about clarifying. Your what is makes sense. What I know about people with the what of makes sense is they're really good at solving problems. People come to you with problems, and Greg comes up with solutions. So you use clarifying questions in order to find better ways to do things, and then you solve problems for your clients. And who doesn't want that in there? Now, what would we, other than revenue generated, what would we say somebody gets when they hire Greg Wasserman? What are people hiring you for?
I mean, the core is passion, right? So you're getting the passion. I believe in what you're doing, and that's the biggest thing, right? So in order to have authentic conversations and in order to have authentic connections, I have to believe in why we're doing this. And the core is why that person, I'm going to be able to help them. So that the authenticity there, the connection, you don't feel like it's just a sales call. You don't feel like this is a mining act. It's like, no, like you get the authentic Greg who wants to help the business, help your business ultimately grow and succeed and make money, because I truly believe that that's what we're here for.
And you did something really cool, and it just came to my mind. And when you were at Cast Magic, you had a great offer. Here, just try it. Let me put it in your hands. It was a risk-free. It was such a great product. Was that something you had a hand in creating, and is that something you believe in, creating almost a risk-free opportunity for people to try whatever it is that you're bringing to the table, so that we can get buy-in and experience? Because it's so much easier to have people experience something and buy it versus telling them about it and have them buy it.
I think the core piece for me was understanding the aha moment, right? So at the end of the day, I'm not an engineer, so I'm not being able to build the product. I'm not able to build the flow, but I knew the if I could get the lights, you would understand that. And the quickest way to get those lights is to show you and go like, look, you've told me what you're doing. For those that don't know, Cast Magic's a content repurposing engine. We take any conversation and repurpose it into all the text that you and may need. So it's like, I know your business. The more conversations I have with people, the more I can understand enough about their business. But also remember, I love helping you understand how to make more money. So if your business is X right now, I'm like, well, what would X look like if you could do this, if you could do more, if you had the ability to do all these things? And usually the answer is like, I don't have enough time in the day. I don't have enough energy and so forth. I'm like, well, what if the platform was able to do that for you seamlessly? Wouldn't that make it easier for you? Wouldn't you be able to make more money? And if the person has the objections like, oh, then I'm like, then you really don't, then that's not, this isn't going to work, right? Because like you are still stuck in a fixed mindset of like, oh, I wish I could do that. I'm literally telling you how you could do that and you're not. So for me, it was, I knew if I showed you, if I walked you through it, you would end up going like, oh my God, I could do X, Y, and Z. I'm like, great. Yes. I didn't even think about it because I don't know your business well enough. I know decent enough through conversations, but like, you're the one who knows your business better. So if I could just get the light bulb turning, you're either going to run with the light bulb or you're going to shut it down because you have a fixed mindset and your business is like, nope, this isn't it. I'm like, great. I'm not going to convince a fixed mindset to find more ways to make money and save them time.
You know, you bring up another important part that I like to that, you know, obviously leading sales teams. I've always had these conversations with people. You know what makes a confident salesperson is a full funnel, right? It's easy, and you just talked about it. You know, if somebody's not a fit, they're not a fit. We're not going to bang our head against the wall and try to close that sale because they're not a good fit. And what I think what's important and what the tools that you bring to the table is they give you a full funnel. If Greg says no, guess what? I've got someone else waiting that I can have a conversation with that might be the right fit. And then you've got to know who your right fit clients are. So you got to know who it is that you're looking for, so that when they walk in the door or when they get on the Zoom call with you, you know that that's a right fit, that you can actually help them. And then it's just a matter of having the conversation and seeing if it's a fit, right?
I mean, you say this, I shouldn't say you say this, you know this, having been in sales for as long as you have, right? Like maybe is the death. The quickest you can get to a yes or a no is what you want. So yes, great. If it's a no, you either overcome the objections because of the no, you're like, great. That also goes back to my motto. Life is about time and relationships. Fine. You told me yes, you told me no, whatever the answer may be. We had this conversation. If it's a no, great. Let's figure out what is a yes. And it may not be my product. It may be what else are you looking for. So I can go instead and go recommend, have you thought about this tool, or have you thought about this person, or you should talk to this person? Like, that's the way I'm thinking about this. Give me a yes, give me a no. Let me figure out then how do I help you the best as I can and support you. at the end of the day, that is going to be coming back to me and the company I work for, because the company goes like, Greg, you didn't get a sale. It's like, yes, but I made an advocate for us. I made an advocate because they're like, this company isn't just trying to sell me. They are trying to help me with my business. They know what my business is and they want to see me succeed. And that's literally what I want to do. So the ideal dream, right? Level 4 is you work for a company or you offer a solution that sells itself, but sometimes you don't always have that opportunity. So you still have to do some kind of work.
Yeah, no, and I love what you said. You know, you're either going to make. I look at it like this: we're either going to make a sale, or we're going to make a friend, right? And we're going to make a connection. And I love how you take it out even further, where you're also going to make a fan, right? Make a fan of you, make a fan of Greg, make a fan of the company that you represent. I know you specialize, Greg, in community building, and that can mean a lot of things, but I specifically recommended you to a good friend of mine who sells a SaaS product, but and you know, I'm not going to give you all the details. I'll let you guys talk, but for the audience's sake, they have a SaaS product. It can be useful. It can be used for one thing, but they have found that there are many other things that product can do, and sometimes it just takes a matter of having a further conversation and realize, hey, there's other things we can do for you. And so what they've done, they've been able to be successful and growing their in-store sales 130%, I think is what the last number I heard. So that means they're growing their existing customers by 30%, plus they're getting new customers. So that's a really nice model. And when you talked about community building and they started talking to me about community building, I said, you know, you got to talk to Greg. So explain community building for the layperson, and then maybe for somebody who's already trying to build a community with their product or with their company. I have a community of why not leaders. I call them why not champions who like to lead different. That's who I want to attract, and that's who I want to get recommended to. But maybe talk to us about what community building is for the basics, and then let's give us an example of somewhere where you help build a community and what that did in terms of revenue.
Yeah, so I think the buzzword right now is community. So I think community has come to mean a lot of things. One way you can look at community is a sales funnel. So how do I bring people? How do I create a funnel and then bring people into this community and then ultimately manage them based on the information or whatever I'm doing with inside that community, that they become a client or a sale or whatever the case may be. So you've got that kind of, which I think is being overdone because there's so many communities. Though, if anyone's listening to this, I have not found one for business operations. My brother's in biz ops, and we were talking. I'm like, is there a biz op community? He's like, I don't think so. So maybe there's a hole there, but for the most part, you could find any kind of community you want. What I love focusing on is your existing customer community and giving them in a place. Most of the time, community in that realm is created by marketing or customer service and looking at for product feedback or how do we overcome some of the issues or tech issues that are customers, and becomes, in a sense, a place they complain, or I wish I had this feature. What I loved and what I was able to do is you have the conversations. So kind of your example here is you start having the conversations, you start understanding how are people using this product? What could they be doing? What do they need? So it's great product feedback, but you also start understanding where are these people living? So where other communities are they in? There's tools out there that can give you some of this kind of stuff, but the best piece is having these conversations. Having these conversations with your customer allows you then to start increasing retention because you're also educating them on the product. You're finding new ways that they could use it, which hopefully increases your spend. They become an advocate of it. They're like, wow, this is an amazing platform. This is an amazing company. I want to go tell more people about it because they have the great customer service experience with you. But you're also then, because my mindset goes revenue, is like, all right, who else should I be talking to? So every person I'm talking to, I'm like, who else can you connect me with? And we just continue down that route. So that becomes a referral network there for your inbound leads in some cards. And then you look at it from a partnership standpoint. Where are the commonalities within the customers we have, what groups they're in, products they're using that you can start looking at, either tech integrations you could look at from a co-marketing, co-selling kind of motion. You could look at all these different components. So for me, the community becomes like this flywheel, becomes this ecosystem of connections with a revenue draw of retention, growth, partnerships, and referrals, because now you've got an audience that's looking at you not just as a product, but as an ecosystem of like, wow, you've brought these people together in this shared place. Once again, being the person of a connector, being the connector that I am, I'm like, hey, Dan, you should be talking to Sally in the community because I've talked to you both. I've seen what you're doing, and that'd be a great fit. Ultimately, you're now creating a business solution that your product isn't just the glue from, because you always have to remember, your product isn't everything in this person's business. Even if you're Salesforce, right? Like, you're still using other tools. So how do you start being the connection of going like, Dan, you should talk to this person because you're having a similar issue. And now you start creating that place that people want to come to because your solution, as well as the community, is providing the value, the need to be successful.
You know, one of the things that you said there that's really important, and I think you do it better than you're giving yourself credit for, Greg. And it talks about who else can you connect me with? I think you say it actually the correct way. Who else can I connect you to? I think we're all much more open when someone says, "Hey, who do I know that you want to know?" That immediately puts you in a mode of like, "Oh man, let me look at Greg's connections. Who does he know that I need to know?" And then automatically you come back and say, "Hey, Greg, who can I help you with?" I've never asked that question and had the other person not reciprocated. Say, "Hey, who do I know that I need that you need to know?" Or the other question I ask is, "What can I do? What can I do to help you?" And immediately it comes back to, okay, what can I do to help you? And so you're really good at that. And I like the way you talked about building that community based on the fact, and that's a tremendously important realization, Greg, that no matter how good your product is, you are just one aspect of your client's business, regardless, even like you said, even if you're Salesforce, you're a big part, but you're not everything. You started at Yahoo a long time ago, back before probably was one of the top search engines, right? How long ago was that? What came out? You know, that experience had to have been a great experience. So you started there. What was the biggest takeaway you took out of working for a behemoth like Yahoo at a time when it was probably in its prime?
I don't know. Put me on the spot here. What's the biggest takeaway? I mean, look, we were at the time I was there. I remember the chart. We were like top 3 in 27 categories. Now, I
Wow.
don't even know what Yahoo is, right? But like the fragmentation, there's
Right.
so much fragmentation now, and which is interesting. At that time, it's like, great, we're top for news, top for sports, top for this, top for that. And it's like, now there's just so much fragmentation in the market where you can go and get whatever kind of content you want. You're not going to a central hub. I mean, you look at AI and the revolution we've got there. So that has created a Google's, where's search going to go if people can now just go to AI and ask what they need as opposed to going to Google? So yeah, I don't know if I have a good answer for that question. I apologize.
No, not at all. I mean, that's not a bad answer, actually, because I think one of the things you brought up is the evolution, right? And you constantly keep evolving. I see the different companies that you've worked with. You've got a great work history and results history. That's the other a pretty cool thing. So maybe a better question is, what's something you learned at Yahoo that you still use today? Something that you used back then and you're still sharing it with the world?
Breaking down silos. I guess it goes to my why, right? So I was always asking the questions.
Yeah.
I was in a sales org, but I didn't understand, like, why wouldn't I be going to talk to all these departments? Like, the more people you interact, I mean, it doesn't matter what size of a company you're in, everything's going to be siloed. Working in sales, you always have the joke, like, sales and marketing are like oil and water, where it's like, you aren't giving the good leads, you're not closing leads. It's like, at the end of the day, we're all here to help serve the customer. Like, that's literally our goal. Like, if we don't have a customer, we're not making revenue. So how do we work better as an organization? And the organization's not just my own entity, but like all of these, so that we can find ways so that other departments understand what you're doing. And that's the biggest thing. Most of the time, other departments are in their own box. Department heads are maybe working together, but like foot soldiers may not. Like my job was always like, let me go connect, let me learn inside the organization. And that's only helped me because I realized, especially since in my career now, I'm usually like the lone wolf in partnerships and sales. You are outside of product, you are outside of marketing, you are like a lone wolf. So if you aren't breaking down silos, if you aren't saying, hey, there's a reason I need to learn these pieces of information, if nothing else, so I can feel more connected to the company. Because if I feel disconnected and you're just saying go sell, then that's going to be a problem. So the biggest thing is always understand how to break down silos. And as your org, whether you're a solopreneur and you've got VAs, like the key piece is making sure that people understand their purpose, but also understand, hey, go ask other questions. If you have a need to understand, to get clarity, go find that, go get that, because that is most likely. What I love is here understanding your YOS, right? So like my YOS is to ask questions, therefore I can bring clarity, which will help me work better and smarter and be more productive for your company. Why are you going to stop that? Too often people will stop that because like, you don't need to know this information. And I'm like, but that is your operating system. My operating system is different. And if you start understanding what your working genius is, what your operating system is, then you'll start bringing together a better company, which will move further ahead.
Yeah, great use of what we call it the platinum rule, right? People often use the golden rule: treat others as you would like to be treated. I like to use the platinum rule: treat others the way they want to be treated, because your Y operating system is different from mine, and mine is different from Sally's, and Sally's is different from Joe's, and we got to talk to people in their language. The other thing I loved about your breaking down silos is it is so important to understand that, you know, at the end of the day, and man, you are full of really good gems today. Without a customer, you didn't say we're all trying to make money. You said, no, we're all trying to serve a customer. And when you start with serving the customer, you're going to do so much better. One of my mentors, Jerry Lujan, likes to say, you can't sell what John Smith buys until you look through John Smith's eyes. And that's exactly what you said. You like to get out and visit with the customer, get to know them, understand their needs, because clients will tell us how to sell to them if we let them speak.
I mean, that's the biggest thing, right? Like a good salesperson, a good person in general will talk less, which also makes being a guest on people's podcast awkward because you're like, I'm used to asking the questions, right? But like in this day, so like, no, I'm supposed to speak. But like, yeah, for the most part, if I can ask the questions and get you to talk, that is going to create a better connection. I mean, I can come in here and say, this is my job, this is what I do. But at the end of the day, if we don't have a volley, if we're not having a conversation, if we're not creating that connection, then it's going to be really hard. So if your guard is up, then my job is to, how do I break that down? Go like, look, yes, it's clearly I'm here to sell, but I'm selling myself in this situation. And that's the way I look at it. Life is about time and relationships. I am, in a sense, selling myself. We are always selling and marketing self. I learned that in school. It was one of my first marketing classes in business school, right? Like, we are always in sales, you're always in marketing, and you're selling yourself, you're marketing yourself. So if that's the case, I'm ultimately trying to serve you as a customer because I want you to know, like, and trust me.
Man, and you talk about getting some great clips from our conversation. I can see already some clips being created. Greg, let me ask you, I ask everybody that comes on, what does it mean to you to lead different? What does it mean? What does that mean to you? And how would you put that in the world that you operate in?
I mean, I guess the biggest thing is you always have the boss or a leader, right? So most companies are bosses. From a lead different, it's ask the questions. It is rally the troops. It is a matter of working internally so that you are not trying to just sell, not just trying to do this, not trying to do that, but you're coming at it from a strategic standpoint and people are rallying with you. They feel there's a reason for doing this. But I think like what you said is each person's why is different. So it's understanding, it's having that human connection of like why. Quick little story. I working in sales, I remember I had a boss who was like, if you did this, you'll make more money. Isn't that what you want? And I'm like, I'm not in sales because I want to make more money. That is, in a sense, the outcome of me being in it. But I'm good in sales because I love what I do, and therefore I'm helping a customer. So if my customer, if my client, if the person I'm talking to finds value, they're going to buy the product. They're going to retain, they're going to spend more, therefore I will make more money. So at the end of the day, if you're saying just go sell more and I'll make more money, that isn't going to fuel me. So a good leader understands what fuels each of their team members, understands how they operate, how they're able to bring it together. That is a very hard thing to do as a leader. That's a very hard thing to do as a person. To be a leader, you've got to be able to do that well.
Man, that makes so much sense, and I'm glad you brought that up. I have a video, and by the way, go to my website if you want. Yeah, but one of the videos that I have on the website, it talks about the fact, yes, it takes numbers. You've got to have metrics, and you've got to have all those things. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the people, and people have feelings, people have thoughts, people have aspirations, and good leaders know the dreams and aspirations of the people that work for them. And as a leader, your job is to work, and they're your clients. Guess what? Your employees are your clients too. If you treat them like clients and help them achieve their dreams, they're going to go to battle for you. When you come in, I tell the story. There was a year one time when I was in corporate where I was halfway through my quota, well, 3/4 of the way through the year, and so we had to make up 50% of our quota in one quarter. And those sales managers and those sales teams came together, and we put an action plan together. I brought them all in. I said, hey, it's do or die, because the sales director goes bye-bye when you don't hit your number. And so we all knew. I didn't have to say it. They knew. And I said, hey, what are we going to do? And they put together an amazing plan, and they executed it. And we got $250 million in sales in one quarter. And we beat the quota by, I think, $107,000. It wasn't by much. And we made our last sale on 28. But that doesn't happen without people. You don't just go in and say, oh, here's the number, let's get it done. Right. It was coming together. It's caring and understanding that they did it because they knew I would have done the same for them. And that you don't get that unless you build relationships. You were going to say something. Let me let you in on that.
You just think about it. I loved your story. One of the things that comes to mind is I can go to the team going like, team, we're behind goal. So let's go figure out what we're going to do and go get more goal. But if they don't like you, there are sales reps who, even though it hurts them, they're going to miss their goal, whatever. Like there's some of the, cut your nose, spite your face type deal. Like you have not motivated them. You are a boss instead of a leader here. You have not really the treat, so they feel like, oh, my boss is going to, like, maybe they want you to lose your job, right? Like what have you done to empower them to be empathetic, to go like, you guys, right? The strategy I came up with isn't working. Let's sit down and figure this out. And that's another thing that a leader does. Like part of it is you incorporate the team. Like, why did you hire these people in the first place? So they came back to you and said, this is what I'm seeing, right? Like, and
right.
As a good sales leader, most of the time your reps should be making more money than you are because they're out there. Your job is to, how do I motivate them? How do I understand what's motivating? But also, how do I help them strategically? How do I block it and move away some of the pieces that are struggling for them? Whether it's a mental block, whether it is a physical, whatever it is, but like you're coming at it from an empathetic standpoint, which makes a very good leader.
Yeah, no, and leaders eat last. Simon Sinek talks about it, right? You're the leader for a reason, and your job is to take care of your people, because if you don't take care of them, back in the caveman days, the big strong guy was the leader, and he was supposed to protect everybody. But if you don't do your job, guess what? When that lion is coming in at night and is going to snatch you, nobody's going to wake you up because you haven't done your job as a leader, and then we can go back. Oh, we don't have to go all the way back to caveman days. There are things that we can do as leaders. that show our people that we care for them and we're taking care of them. So let's ask this question, because I love this question. Tell us about your why not moment, Greg. Tell us about a time in your life when you said why not to an opportunity, a career change, something, and you're so glad that you did it.
I mean, I have to say, and I'll use as an example because it's a perfect one. I said, why not to the job with Cast Magic, which brought us to this moment today, right? So the fact that I went from a mindset of like, all right, I'm being underpaid. It's a bootstrap startup. Like, could I do this? Going like, hold on, what is the alternative not to do this? I believe in the product. Like, they blew my mind away when they showed it to me. We connected over LinkedIn. Once again, the power of connection and know, like, and trust, and not even knowing where a conversation can take you. So I said yes to Cast Magic, even though if the money wasn't there and it was a bootstrap company, because like you saw the potential, you liked the leadership, you saw the opportunity that you could do for yourself. And because of that, it opened up so many doors. It opened up so many opportunities. While I may not be consulting with them and working with them anymore, it's like I still am an advocate of the product. Case in point, anyone that's listening to this, like Dan and I are connecting over this, but I still talk about it, right? Like that is the why not moment of like, this could be huge, this could not be huge, but the saying no is going to be the hardest thing. And so I'm so glad I said yes.
That's pretty cool. One of the things that I love to say is, at the end of our life, we don't regret the things we didn't do. We did. We don't regret the things we did. We regret the things we didn't do. Nobody sits on their deathbed and say, "Oh, I'm so sad I did that." You say, "I wish I had done X." And so that's a why not moment for you, when you're not going to sit on your deathbed or lay on your deathbed and say, "Oh, I wonder what would have happened if I had said yes to that opportunity." So kudos to you for doing that. Greg, is there anything we've forgotten to talk about today that we want to make sure and let people know?
I'll just add to this because I'm sure a lot of the people that are listening to you are in that boat from an entrepreneur standpoint. The why not moment with Cast Magic was going from a standard corporate, W-2 kind of job, even if I work for startups, but going from that to like, all right, you're 1099, we're working for a bootstrap company, this is the way to go. And it's like, I've never done that. So of course fear comes in because you've never done that, but then you have to ask yourself, what is the potential to do something that you've never done before, to lean into that discomfort? And then the more you start leaning into discomfort and have that growth mindset, the more you will start seeing opportunity. You'll start seeing where the potential goes, which also goes back to my whole philosophy of like, life is about time and relationships. You have no clue where that conversation is going to take you. So say yes to it and see where that conversation goes. So in this case, I started implementing that and going like, well, I don't know where this is going to take me. I just know it is a different path than what I've had. There's a commonality in paths I've taken from a revenue, community, and relationship standpoint, but I don't know where this is going to take me. So say yes. So think about that with your own self, your own business. What is the harm by saying, I've always done it this way? Or I am not going to move the needle by doing X. It's like, no, like start saying yes, start being curious. And that's why one of my philosophies or one of my core values is curiosity. Like the more curious you are, the more growth mindset you have, the more you'll probably succeed.
Man, that is a great reason to have you on the podcast. That is a way to lead different, and that is a definite why not moment. Greg, it's been such a pleasure spending some time with you, sharing your wisdom with our Why Not Leadership and the Lead Different podcast audience. Guys, don't forget to hit like on the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe. Share it with your friends. Tell people about Greg Wasserman. You can find him on LinkedIn. Real easy, Greg Wasserman on LinkedIn. You'll recognize that face. He still has great hair, so you're gonna see him on there. He's a revenue generator. He's a difference maker, and he's a connector. And I know you will enjoy getting to know him. And I know he'll take your phone call. He'll take that Zoom appointment, and he'll get to know you because he's a lead different kind of guy, and he's gonna say yes. He's gonna say why not. Why don't we see you guys next week? Greg, what do you say we end the show on that note?
Why not?
Thank you so much for being on, Greg. See you guys next week on the Lead Different podcast.
This is Lead Different.
Subscribe now. Discover a new era of leadership. Lead different because great leaders change the world.
Why not leadership? Why not lead different? When you do the things that everyone else does, you get the same results as everyone else gets. Let's do things a little different. Let's lead different. And ask yourself this.